Angelfall by Susan E. Chapter 5. Long after Paige disappeared into the clouds, I turn around looking for my mother. It's not that I don't care about her, it's just that our relationship is more complicated than the usual daughter-mother relationship. The rosy love I'm supposed to feel for her is slashed with black and splattered with various shades of gray. There is no sign of her. Her cart lies on its side with its junk contents strewn beside the truck we were hiding behind. I hesitate before yelling out, "Mom?" Anyone or anything that might have been attracted to the noise would already be here, watching in the shadows. "Mom!" Nothing stirs in the deserted street. If the silent watchers behind the dark windows lining the street saw where she went, nobody is volunteering to tell me. I try to remember if I had maybe seen another angel grab her, but all I can see is Paige's dead legs as she was lifted from her chair. Anything could have happened around me at that time, and I would have been oblivious to it. In a civilized world where there are laws, banks, and supermarkets, being a paranoid schizophrenic is a major problem. But in a world where the banks and supermarkets are used by gangs as local torture stations, being a little paranoid is actually an advantage. The schizophrenic part, though, is still a problem. Not being able to tell reality from fantasy is less than ideal. Still, there is a good chance that Mom made herself scarce before things got too ugly. She is probably hiding somewhere, most likely tracking my movements until she feels safe enough to come out. I survey the scene again. I see only buildings with dark windows and dead cars. If I hadn't spent weeks secretly peering out of one of those dark windows, I might believe I was the last human on the planet. But I know that out there, behind those concrete and steel, there are at least a few pairs of eyes whose owners are considering whether it's worth the risk of running out into the street to scavenge the angel's wings along with any other part of him that they can cut off. According to Justin, who was our neighbor until a week ago, word on the street is that somebody had put a bounty on angel parts. A whole economy is being created around tearing angels to pieces. The wings fetch the highest price, but hands, feet, scalp, and other more sensitive parts can also fetch a nice sum if only you can prove they're from an angel. A low groan interrupts my thoughts. My muscles tense instantly, readying for another fight. Are the gangs coming? Another low moan. The sound is coming not from the buildings, but directly in front of me. The only thing in front of me is the bleeding angel lying on his face. Could he still be alive? All the stories I've heard say if you cut off an angel's wings, he would die. But maybe that's true the way if you cut off a person's arm, he would die. Left unchecked, he would simply bleed to death. There can't be many chances you get yourself a piece of angel. The streets may be flooded with scavengers any minute. The smart thing to do would be to get out while I still can. But if he's alive, maybe he knows where they took Paige. I trot over, my heart beating furiously with hope. Blood streams down his back and pools in the asphalt. I flip him over unceremoniously, not even thinking twice about touching him. Oh. Even in my frantic state, I notice his ethereal beauty, the smooth rise of his chest. I imagine his face would be classically angelic if not for the bruises and welts. I shake him. He lies unresponsive, like the Greek god statues he resembles. I slap him hard. His eyes flutter for a moment, they register me. I fight the panicked urge to run. Where are they going? He moans, his eyelids drooping down. I slap him again as hard as I can. Tell me where they're going. Where are they taking her? A part of me hates this new Penryn I've become, hates the girl who slaps a dying being. but I shove the part of it deep down into a dark corner where it can nag me some other time when Paige is out of danger. He groans again, and I know he won't be able to tell me anything if I don't stop his bleeding and take him to a place where the gangs aren't likely to swoop down and chop him into little trophies. He is shivering, probably going into deep shock. I flip him over onto his face, this time noticing how light he is. I run over to my mother's upended cart. I dig through the pile looking for any rags to wipe him up with. A first aid kit is hidden in the bottom of the cart. I hesitate only a second before grabbing it. I hate to waste precious first aid supplies on an angel who will die anyway, but he looks so human without his wings that I allow myself to use a few sterile bandages as a layer on his cut. His back is covered with so much blood and dirt I can't actually see how bad the wounds are. I decide it doesn't matter so long as I can keep him alive long enough to tell me where they took Paige. I wrap strips of rags around his torso so tightly as I can, trying to put as much pressure on the wound as possible. I don't know if you can kill a person by making the bindings too tight, but I do know that bleeding to death is a faster death by almost any other way. I can feel the pressure of unseen eyes on my back as I work. The gangs would assume that I'm cutting out trophies. They're probably assessing whether the other angels are likely to come back and whether they have time to run out to wrestle the pieces out of my hands. I have to bundle him up and get him out of here before they grow too bold. In my haste, I knot him up like a rag doll. I run over and grab Paige's wheelchair. He is surprisingly light for his size, and it's far less of a struggle than I anticipated to get him into the chair. I suppose it makes sense when you think about it. It's easier to fly when you weigh 50 pounds rather than 500. Knowing he's stronger and lighter than humans doesn't make me feel any warmer towards him. I make a show of lifting him and putting him into the chair, grunting and staggering as though he's terribly heavy. I want the watchers to think this angel is as heavy as he looks, because maybe then they'll conclude I'm stronger and tougher than I look in my under 5'2" frame. Is that the beginning of an amused grin forming on the angel's face? Whatever it is, it turns into a grimace of pain as I dump him into the chair. He's too big to fit comfortably, but it'll do. I quickly grab the silken wings to wrap them up in a moth-eaten blanket from my mother's cart. The snowy feathers are wondrously soft, especially compared to the coarse blanket. Even in this panicked moment, I'm tempted to stroke the smooth down. If I pluck the feathers and use them as currency one at a time, a single wing would probably house and feed all three of us for a year. That is, assuming I can get all three of us back together again. I quickly wrap both wings, not fretting too much about the feathers that are being broken. I consider leaving one of the wings here on the street to distract the gangs and encourage them to fight amongst each other instead of chasing me. But I need the wings too much if I'm to entice the angel into giving me information. I grab the sword, which is amazingly light as the feathers, and stick it unceremoniously into the seat pocket of the wheelchair. I take off at a dead run down the street, pushing him as fast as I can into the night.